Welcome to the Brokers Open Podcast.
Today, we have the honor of sitting down with Captain Tom Chaby, who served in the Navy SEALs for 26 years. We get to talk about relevancy, mindset, mental health, and so much more.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Palm Media. Palm Media is a boutique digital marketing company built for realtors by realtors. They help agents and teams dominate a target market with specific tailored strategies. Everything from video, chatbots, landing pages, Facebook ads, database management, and coaching. And oh my gosh, it's way more affordable and simple than you could ever imagine. Call now for a 100% free strategy session, whether you have a budget or not. Dr. Ben, my good friend, will make sure that you are heading in the right direction and building your presence online or flat out crushing your competition. Before you spend a dime on marketing, door knocking, or sending out postcards, call Palm Media. 813-765-7706. I repeat, 813-765-7706. Or click the link on the description below and manifest your paradise. All right, folks.
So here we go.
Yeah, man. I'm real excited about this one. This gentleman to my right is somebody I've been harassing for a couple months to get on here.
To get him out here, and here he is.
And he was genuine enough with my persistence to actually to come here and be a part of this. So I appreciate it. Captain Tom Chaby, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I
glad to be
appreciate
here.
it. Yeah.
We love having you here. I got to tell a quick story though. Whenever we were setting up the chairs, what we were actually going to do is we were going to, Justin was saying we're going to get a chair that's about this tall.
And I was going to get a big plushy couch for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
To try to build himself up.
Yeah.
He's been very excited about you coming on, and he's had nothing but wonderful things to say. So I'm excited to finally meet you, and I know there's going to be a lot of great content that's going to help a bunch of people out. So
Fantastic.
yep.
So
Glad to have you here.
how I met Tom originally was obviously kind of through the Bel Air interwebs, and Bel Air is such a small community that if you don't know a majority of everybody, you eventually kind of will. Is that true to say? Kind of?
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an outsider. My wife's an insider, and now I am slowly learning the group, the circle.
Yeah, Bel Air's like that. It's kind of funny like that. But my wife works for Baycare, obviously, and we got word a couple years back, a year and a half back, I think, at this point, that Captain Tom Chaby was going to be speaking at the Planners Luncheon.
Oh, nice.
And I look at my wife and I go, we're going to that.
Go.
And let me tell you something about this event. It is a mainly women-dominated event. And she's like, "Are you really want to go? Like all the women kind of dressed in pink, and there's all this stuff." And
yes.
I'm like, "Yes, I will be there."
Yeah.
And so I waited around like 20 or 30 minutes after the crowd went and harassed Tom after he spoke, and I was like, I really, really appreciate it. And that was the first time I met him, and then since then seen him many times. But I just find it funny that I had to go to a Planners Luncheon.
Do you play golf? You play golf with him?
I do not.
You do not?
No golf.
You're the first person that doesn't play golf. Just like,
There
I
we
don't play
go.
golf.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, I usually see him in the gym over there sometimes.
Gotcha.
So he just had
gotcha.
is it total hip replacement surgery?
Total hip replacement.
Wow.
A little bit over a year ago.
And you're
Holy
fine.
cow.
You're back. He's back running again.
I'm good. Yeah, Dr. Cooper. I'll give him a plug here. He's fantastic.
Where's he at? In Tampa?
He's Florida Orthopedic and
Wow.
out of Morton Plant there.
That's
Great.
awesome. Well, quick bio on Captain Tom Chaby, active duty U.S. Navy SEAL for 26 years.
Wow.
26 years. There is a lengthy bio here. I will not go through all of it, but he led teams in special operations in over 60 countries around the world. Shortly after 9/11, he deployed to Afghanistan to lead task unit of 50 SEALs and support personnel conducting special operations in support of the initial stages of Operation Enduring Freedom. During the latter part of the most critical fight in Fallujah, so that we're going over to the Iraqi, Tom led a task force of 400 plus personnel.
Wow.
Yeah, in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Since then, Tom was actually Captain Chaby, I should say. Sorry to call you Tom.
Oh, good.
Outside of the operational realm, Tom worked relentlessly developing and ensuring performance optimization for the SEAL community. And what I really wanted to underline here is the developing the holistic resiliency for 67,000, that's correct, 67,000 plus members of the special ops community.
So you said we were going to have them on, of course, and you sent some information over to me. I start watching some things online, and
Yeah.
you know, so a real estate broker, you know, there's many times that they're in their office just crying, right?
Right.
But you know, I start watching this stuff, and some of what you've been through has just been so absolutely intense. And you know, I watched some of that and everything, and heard some about what your mission is, and we're going to make sure that we dive
Cover
into
that.
that part of it. That is absolutely fantastic. The leadership part, we want to hear a lot about that, because a lot of entrepreneurs watch this. But the part about you giving back at the level that you are is just, I mean, you've done everything at a high level on your game. So I'm not surprised that you're doing that on such a high level. But that was intense stuff to watch. Hearing you go through that, you could tell that it really meant a lot to you. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, going forward from that, I mean, so what he really did, so moving when he unfortunately retired and moved back from California to Bel Air, to little old Bel Air, he took on an organizational leadership role, and has since spent time with NBA, NHL, NFL, NCAA football teams, all the above. He'll be working with a new collegiate team, a big program coming up in the fall that he's really excited about. But long story short, he has a awesome career.
Yep.
Something that I am super proud to call myself an American. Just kind of sit next to him, just because you know, it's just badassery to the 10th degree.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let's start from the beginning, shall we? What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, pretty normal, pretty middle class. Northern New Jersey, just outside New York City. Could see the upper half of the skyline from where I lived, if you went up on the hill at least. Played sports, had a normal family, 2 brothers. Yeah, parents got divorced in high school,
Okay.
which incidentally is one of the characteristics of people that go into SEAL community. We have discovered later on, coming from broken families is
Oh wow.
is an element, and you know, not quite sure why sociologists study us and try to sort it out, and you know, who knows why. There's a lot of different reasons, but why do people go to gangs?
Right.
Maybe some of the same
Right.
thinking is why people go to special mission units like the SEAL community.
Wow.
So when did you? So that's an interesting point. When did you decide? Were you in high school and you? And
I did
you,
not. Yeah, no, I knew nothing about the SEAL community and very little about the military for that part. Grew up, you know, wanted to be an athlete, wanted to play football. I played through high school and college, and skied competitively as well, pretty high level. And you know, that was what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then a couple knee injuries, that all came to a crashing, unceremonious end. And I realized I missed being part of a team. I didn't really know that then. I didn't identify that as the longing in my heart, but it really was the bottom line of what was happening.
Interesting. Yeah.
And, you know, I am embarrassed to admit I had earlier watched a movie with Maverick and Goose. And, and after the movie, you walk out, and there's a Navy recruiter, literally, right there. This was up in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
A buddy of mine and I were
That was an accident, I'm sure, for them to
we're
put
like,
that
oh,
there.
no, purely deliberate. And, you know, the Navy endorsed the movie, so I'm sure it was part of the agreement.
Right.
And we were like, man, we should go be pilots. So anyhow, when my athletic
Wow.
career came to an end, I looked into that again. Went to the recruiter. I remember her name, Susan Zahodny. And as luck would have it, her fiance was a SEAL. I did not even know what a Navy SEAL was.
Wow.
Never even heard
Holy
of it.
cow.
I asked, you know, I saw his photo on her desk. I said, what does he do in the Navy? He was in his whites. And she described the SEAL community, gave me a video.
Oh, wow.
Took it home that night, watched it. It's called Be Someone Special. And
Wow.
watched the video probably 6 or 7 times that night. Got 3 or 4 hours sleep. I was there first thing the next day. I'm like, forget that pilot stuff. I want to do this.
Right.
She's like, really? She called her fiance, and like I said, luck would have it. God, prevention, whatever you want to call it. It was
Wow.
it was
That's
just a
incredible.
perfect set of events to help get
Wow.
me in the right direction.
So then you went to boot camp at that point. Did they have a Buds fast track like they kind of do nowadays back then, or because they kind of
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but I did not go to boot camp. I went through the officer route.
Oh, that's
Okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
so I went to officer candidate school.
OCS.
And it's always been the same, and the SEAL community is unique this way. I'll back up and talk about the Green Beret, Special Forces in the Army, their community. They do not, unless they go through what's called the X-ray program, I believe. It's called, they typically go in the Army, the conventional Army, for approximately 2 years. Then they can ascend into the Special Operations
Got it.
Green Beret community. In the SEAL community, the majority of our guys come right off the street.
Right.
And we select the kind of people we want. I was part of that selection process later in my career.
Yeah.
And then we assess them, test them, and then test them more. And
I'm
then
sure,
they
yeah.
go through the pipeline. And then if they come out the other side successful, they get to become part of the community.
Wow, that's impressive. What
There's
it's
so
not the
much to dig
typical
in there.
route, right? I mean, so a lot of, from what I understand, and I obviously have a very novice level of understanding of this whole thing, but the typical officer doesn't go the SEALs route, right? I mean, because there's usually just a couple slots for officers, and then there's a lot more slots for newer guys.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right, obviously.
So it's a lot harder for you to get in.
It's more competitive for the officers, and the only reason it's more competitive is, like you said,
Yeah.
there's a finite number of spots.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they'll only allow so many come in per year, and so therefore all the physical qualifying times get lower and lower and lower
Right, I'm
because
sure.
they have to differentiate these candidates.
Got it.
Luckily, when I went in, and I'm not a triathlete by any means, I was a sprinter. I was like a running back type of guy when I played football. And nowadays, it is mile and a half, 500-meter swim, pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. Those are the 5
Benchmarks.
benchmarks that they test you on.
Right.
So the run time, it's if you can't run below 8 minutes in the mile and a half, you're going to have a tough time getting in unless you have some other attributes
Right.
that we're after.
Really strong.
I'm not
Right.
sure it's the best way to determine who should come and who shouldn't. I just, at the end of the day on the battlefield, which I had the privilege to serve on for many years, I don't want a triathlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want a middle linebacker that can run a 4.40 and
Right.
bench press 350 pounds 10 times and go through that wall.
Right.
Like Juggernaut, if you know who the
Yeah.
Marvel character.
Of course, yeah.
That's who I want.
Big tough frog man.
Yeah. So there's a little disconnect there, but we're going to a new selection process called the whole man, where we're looking at everything. But the competition's brutal.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I've the reason I bring all that up is because I'm addicted to listening to and reading books about special operations and that whole thing. And one of the interviews that stuck out the most to me, and it's somebody that you know well, is Leif Babin. And Leif laid out that officer candidate school and then going into BUDS and his
Right.
kind of thing there. And I knew that you guys would have a parallel story, but that's just
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Life's a good man.
Yeah. So what was BUDS like? I know, there's a lot to that, and that's probably an ambiguous question. But
So start with you going through it, and then go back to you were the commanding officer for the BUDS program for a while. Or is that
I was never the commanding officer for SEAL training, BUDS, or the overall Naval Special Forces Center. Basically, SEAL University. I was the deputy, the number 2 guy.
Okay.
But BUDS, what was BUDS like? And BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. It's an acronym. It was everything you'd imagine. You see them, Discovery Channel, 60 Minutes, Paul is on.
Right.
They've all done a special on it. It's designed, to determine who really wants to be there. So they're going to make it as brutal as possible. Like,
Right.
you better really want to be here. And they're going to make it as unbearable as legally possible without killing you. And you know what? You need to do that because you can't really assess somebody's resilience and ability to persevere through challenges once you're in the mountains of Afghanistan.
Right.
You
Right.
have to figure it out here. Are you committed to this program? Are you committed to being a teammate? And the word teammate just has a completely different context in our world. Accountability, it's hard for me when I work with these sports teams sometimes. Like, accountability is such a different different thing in the world I came from. And it's not just one person. It's not just the top leader holding his subordinates, as they like to be called in the civilian sector, accountable. It's everybody holding each other accountable.
Right.
Like, yeah, I was the commanding officer of SEAL Team 5. Had a couple hundred SEALs there. And, you know, I was the top of the food chain if you look at it organizationally. But make no mistake, there were brand new, young, 19-year-old frogmen that would hold me accountable on a daily basis.
Right.
How cool is that?
It is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
If everybody'd look at it like that,
I know.
what could we accomplish, right?
I think about it on a daily basis with my couple offices and the people that, you know, quote unquote, report to me, and
Yeah.
you know, the issues that I go through are, how should I say?
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nowhere near it.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why we have that. You know,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're familiar with Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Start with why.
Right.
Right.
I'm a big fan. I mean, I read his book. I watched the TED Talk. We reached out, called him, and brought him to work with our community. I'm a big, big believer in everything should generate from why you're doing it.
Right.
Right.
So for us, it's simple. We have no choice. It's strategically paramount that we get it right in the battlefield.
Yep.
So we have to hold each other accountable.
Right.
But even more so than that, that whole pesky thing called life and death that we face on a daily basis, and not of ourselves, life or death. It's life or death of our teammate on
Right.
our right or left.
Right.
Right.
And you do not want to be the one that's responsible for that.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to embrace accountability and vulnerability
Okay.
and the whole concept of growth, continual growth, Kaizen, and just never stopping, always trying to improve.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody's all in, right? I mean, you don't have a
You're
guy
all in
that's-
or you're out.
Right. Yeah. So that's a big difference. You know, a lot of what we deal with on a daily basis. You know, everybody's not all in.
Right.
These guys, you know, they swear on it, and everybody's all in, and everybody's got to look out for the other person. That's huge.
That's right. And we don't have that nuance known as human resources. We can just eliminate people, not eliminate them in that sense, but
Yeah.
remove them from our
Right.
community,
Right.
where they would just go to the regular Navy if they're not meeting the standard.
Right. Yeah.
And that's probably a rarity there, but that's got to be a tough thing to deal with.
No, it
It's-
happens.
Yeah.
It happens. You know, some people just lose motivation.
Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, I was single the majority of my career. I married Allison late.
Right.
I was at the 18-year mark. Didn't have children until my last deployment. Had my
Wow.
oldest son, Travis. And you get children, it's a whole different proposition when you're on the
Yeah.
battlefield.
Right.
Like before, I never even thought about life or death. I'm like,
Right.
just, okay, it might happen, got it, move forward. You have a kid,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my.
Does that distort your ability to perform at that level?
I think so. I don't know if distort's the right word. It changes the context, and it creates another layer of thought that is probably better off not being there.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can't. It's part of your life.
I can see that.
You have to account for it, and
Yeah.
you know, depending on your priority, and
Right.
being a husband and father is top of my list. So
Right.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah, that
there.
is.
My
Yeah, no
gosh.
doubt. I can't even imagine.
No. I mean, I get
Especially,
that.
especially. I mean, you were programmed to think a certain way for so long. You wanted to be there and think and deliver at that level, and then all of a sudden something else sneaks in, right? And changes
Yeah.
those priorities. That's got to be tough. That's got to be an adjustment in itself.
it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's got a little learning curve there. So,
Yeah.
what year did you get into the teams? What year was that? So it was pre 9/11, but you know, was there a lot of action happening then, and what was going on? What were you doing then?
Yeah, no, great question. I signed up in 1989, started training in December of '89, and that's where it all began.
Right.
And what were we doing in the 90s? We would do what's called FID, Foreign Internal Defense, where we would work with our foreign counterparts. My first deployment was to Subic Bay in the Philippines. So I was there, and from there we worked with the Koreans, the Thai, the Singaporeans. So we worked across the board with these various ally forces where we would just train each other, work
Right.
together, develop relationships for
Right.
future reference.
Right.
So if something were to happen in that part of the world, we'd have a
Right.
network, a circle that we could leverage. But we were just training. And my wife, when I first met her, said, "What do you do?"
Right.
I train. That's I kept a log. I'm a log guy. And I wouldn't say I'm meticulous, but I just like knowing
Right.
things. And I've got all these books where I write stuff. Right. And I trained for 30,000 hours before I went on my first real world mission.
Wow. Holy crap.
So you can figure out how many years that is without sleep. It's about 3.5.
Right. And to become a professional athlete, they say about 10,000 hours.
Right.
That's incredible. So, like on a daily basis, so let's bring that to a regular civilian basis in the sense that, you know, when people go into different careers or entrepreneurship, the biggest thing that I see is that quick burnout. You know, people get motivated real quick for a couple months or a couple weeks, but then, you know, they log their hours, but then all of a sudden that fizzles away. How did you keep that, and how do you continue to keep that
Edge.
that edge?
Yeah.
I mean, for 30,000 hours, I could tell you right now that people would quit it,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
Well, most of them, especially entrepreneurs. I mean, they're on the mission before they've done the training. Is what's happening with a lot of them. I mean, they're going out and jumping in with both feet before they've had the opportunity to get some of the training that they needed in order to perform at a certain level. Mm-hmm. You had to be sharp at the time that you went, of course, because it's a lot different than business because of what's at risk.
What's at stake? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it starts culturally, and I think all greatness begins. I have a model. I call it the team effectiveness model.
Yeah.
The first piece of it is shared values, culture. It's everything. Our culture demands unequivocally that you embrace, they don't say this, but I characterize it this way, embrace Kaizen.
Okay.
It's a Japanese word. We do not have it in the English language. And it means continual improvement.
Right.
You are never done. Your training is never over. There is something you can get better at. I'd like to call myself an overachiever. I was moderately athletic. I had pretty good speed. I was on the stronger side. That was one of my better attributes. I had good endurance. But my real superhero skill was I was resilient. Yeah. You couldn't break me. And I don't know why I have that. I just have it.
Yeah.
And I trained harder than anybody when I was in high school. And it paid off for me. I did really well.
Right.
I trained harder than anybody in college. And it paid off for me. When I became a SEAL, I thought I trained hard, but I didn't. I thought I really listened, but I didn't. I remember the first real world mission I was going on. I remember tying my shoes.
Wow.
Think about that. Do you ever think about tying your shoes?
No.
I don't think about it.
It's muscle memory.
Yeah, it's
But
autonomic.
I was sitting there. I can remember it. I know right where I was, tying my boots. And as a SEAL, we have like 15 different pairs of boots. They give us so much great gear. And I'm like, which pair am I going to wear? I'm like, I'm going to wear these. Pull them off the shelf. And I'm tying my shoes, and we're going to have a brief right afterwards.
Right.
And I'm like, it is important that I get this right. And I'm like sitting there retying them. No, that's not good enough. Then I go down all the way to the bottom and lace them all the way up, tighter. I wanted them to fit perfectly.
Right.
And they did. And I'm just like, wow, I thought I paid attention. I literally thought of this at that very moment. I never really did pay attention to those little things that make a difference. And something that nuanced and insignificant can be significant. So in our world, we have no choice. And you start really just taking everything to the next level,
Right.
and the next level, and the accountability from each other. When I retired at 26 years, there were instructors that had put me through training at my retirement, and then there were some young men that I had the privilege to be on a team with. I was their commanding officer, but we were teammates, nothing more than that, as far as I'm concerned. And I remember, and I said this, I still felt like a new guy.
Wow.
Still felt like a new guy. And it was
Wow.
26 years. And you can't get that. People get comfortable.
Yeah.
That's what crushes organizations, when they when they allow comfort to sneak in.
Yeah, that complacency.
We don't allow it.
Right.
It's just unacceptable. If you get comfortable, you're gone.
Right.
And we all know it.
Right. And it's risking the people on both sides of you, like you said before.
So I'm taking some copious notes here.
Yeah, I see
so
that.
That's incredible. But but it felt like a new guy, even at the end of the 26 years, after everything that you've done, everything that you've seen, every bit of leadership that you've been a
Still
part
has the
of.
fire. Still. So and you hit on culture. So we've talked with a few people that have done things at a pretty high level. Everybody talks about culture and the importance of it,
Yeah.
and being the people around you. Everybody also talks about not ever allowing yourself to feel comfortable in a situation. You gotta make sure that you're taking it serious and treating it like it's new and like it's fresh, and you have to be alert with it. So
I mean, we search to make each other uncomfortable. Like you cannot harass me, like with nicknames
Right.
or some facial feature that might be my chin is a little bit longer than maybe I want.
Mine too.
And yeah, we've got some good-looking chins here.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're going to find out whatever your button is, and they're going to harass you and harass you and harass you. You can't harass me.
He's just built it up
I'm
over the years.
impervious to that.
Right.
We show up to work in the SEAL community, and we're right on the Pacific Ocean. If you're in San Diego at one of the odd teams, if you're at one of the even teams, you're in Virginia Beach, Dam Neck area, and in California especially, we have a pretty good surf zone, big waves. Showed up to work one day, the waves were cranking. 20-foot faces in the
Okay.
back, San Diego, just
Wow.
crushing. And you just hear over the announcement system, all SEALs report to the beach with your fins and mask in 15 minutes. We go out there, and we were directed, swim through the waves. There's a boat waiting for you. Give your swim pair, and swim back. Took about an hour to get through the waves and swim back. The waves were so
Holy
treacherous.
Yeah, that's huge.
But it's, hey, here's an opportunity to
Right.
make them uncomfortable, to help them grow.
Right.
It will not go unnoticed, and we'll take advantage of every one of those every time.
Wow.
I mean, I know that you're doing this, now with the businesses and the companies and the individuals that you work with, but I can't imagine being able to try and take that experience and deliver that and transition that to a civilian type of, a company, to be able to make that parallel.
Yeah, that's gotta be
got to
tough.
be so difficult.
So
It's hard. Yeah, you can't.
You can't replicate
Obviously,
that.
you can't do what we did, but mindset. It's choice. And maybe it's been socialized into you over year after year after year of thinking a certain way, but you have a choice to think however you want to think.
right.
I've evolved. I used to be this positive thinking guy. Now I have a friend, Trevor Moad, he's a mindset guy, and he's the guy who got me into working with sports teams.
Oh, okay, cool.
And his whole his new mantra is negative thinking works 100% of the time. If you think negatively, negative things are going to happen 100% of the time.
Right.
Positive thinking works a lot of the time, but not always.
Right.
You can't positive think your way into winning a Super Bowl, for
Right.
example. But it's good. The best thing to do is be a neutral thinker. And I think he's right.
Wow.
And the more I think about it, and the more I apply it to those situations where mindset is the difference, neutral thinking is everything. Because the minute, I didn't want to talk about this, but I'm going to. And I work with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Right.
And we just lost a crushing blow 4 games in a row to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Great team. Way better than they were perceived to be by the media beforehand. And I'm not saying that because they beat us 4 games straight. They legitimately were a very good team that we were not thrilled about playing in the first round. But, I'm still struggling and wrestling with what happened to the team. And part of it was, here we had a historic regular season. I mean, we tied the NHL historic record for most wins in a season.
Yeah.
62 games. So we were put up here as this overwhelming favorite. Overwhelming.
Yeah. Stanley Cup or bust.
Too much.
Right.
And Columbus was set up as this horrible, what are they even doing in the playoffs? They had nothing to lose.
Right.
And they have Tortorella, great coach.
Old Lightning coach, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you take that whole positive thinking, negative thinking, neutral thinking, And when you have this overwhelming expectation, I'm not going to sit here and say the players felt a certain way or didn't feel a certain way. And a lot of things went in. We had a lot of good looks at shots that just didn't go our way.
Right.
We hit a lot of crossbars, a lot of posts. It's not an excuse. But you collectively put all this together is, man, you can't positive think your way through anything. You have to, it's got to be process, and process some more. You can't think about the outcome.
Right.
And when you're the overwhelming favorite, and then you lose a game you should have won when you're up 3-0 after the first,
Right.
you can't help but think outcome unless you are the most disciplined thinker in the world.
Right.
And it's near impossible to get that out of your head. I worked with Coach Saban
Right.
at Alabama,
Right.
and most of these coaches, before I speak to their team, they want to know what I'm going to talk about.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
I have a team. What are you going to talk to my guys about here?
Right.
Coach Saban's like, Tom, I know your message. I love it. Get after it. But one thing before you go in there, don't talk about outcomes. We're all about process here. Right. And it's obvious when you watch that.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't just switch into process thinking before the first game
Right.
of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It has to be a habit.
Right.
And you have to do it game after game after game. And, that's not exactly what happened to the Lightning, but all these things are part of what happened, clearly.
Wow.
Right. So you've mentioned a couple of teams, and so you've done a lot of executive type coaching that you took from your leadership with the SEAL teams into businesses, right? Fortune 500 businesses, into sports, professional sports. So can you talk to us a little bit about that transition between the two of those? What guided you into going in that direction? Did a friend say, "Hey, you got a great message, come do this," or were you driven to do it? How did you make that transition?
No, none of the above.
You got tricked into it.
I'm an accidental, and I'm not a motivational speaker by any means. I like to fancy myself as a guy that works on team effectiveness. I'm not really a mindset guy. I mean, with the Lightning, we have a sports psychologist,
Right.
Ryan Hamilton. He's fantastic. I work with him. I look at team effectiveness. I look at the dynamic. I look at what are the things that are going to help us be better. What are the things that might prevent us from being as good as we can be? So how did I get into this? I was the deputy commander, which I mentioned, of SEAL training. And
Right.
our admiral referred to the SEAL training command as the quarterdeck of naval special warfare. Naval special warfare is the umbrella term for the SEAL community. Mm-hmm. And the quarterdeck means the place where people go first. That's what it is, and it's like your foyer, essentially.
Right.
It's like the greeting place. What he meant by that was, I don't want to talk to any of these people that are interested in the SEAL community. You at the SEAL Training Command are going to be talking to all those people. So my commanding officer there, Bill Wilson, great man, he was senior to me and phenomenal leader. And Bill's like, Tom, day one, he goes, I am not the commanding officer and you are not the number 2 deputy. You and I are co-commanding officers.
Right.
We're each going to have a portfolio of work. We'll collaborate, commiserate, communicate, do all the C words and get after it, and then we'll work this together. But
Nice.
one thing that's non-negotiable is I want nothing to do with the visits. That's all you. So I had to meet with everybody who came through. Not everybody,
gosh.
but the majority.
Wow.
We would have in the neighborhood of 200 a year.
Wow.
So I would meet with Vice President Cheney, Biden,
Yeah.
the President Musharraf from Pakistan, Alabama football, you name it, corporations,
Right.
coming through, on and on and on in these groups.
Wow.
And each group, it got monotonous.
I'm sure.
I was a marginally effective speaker. I got better and better and better. I finally got to the point about 6 months into this 2-year experience where I had a public affairs officer, Christine Gargan. And I said, Christine, I don't want to know what they want to discuss. You just prepare some slides for me, and then right before I walk in, surprise me so I can have some excitement and put myself on the spot and make it a little bit more of a, not a threatening situation, but of a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I gotta be nimble and quick.
Caught off guard.
So
Gotta stay spry.
I got really effective at fielding questions and at presenting messages. And every message was different.
Right.
You know, one person would want this, some leadership, team effectiveness, women in the military, performing under pressure, resilience, you know, you name it, PTS, just
Right.
everything you could imagine. I never knew what I'd have to discuss, and I got pretty nimble.
Right.
And from that, I would work with these
Oh, yeah.
organizations, and they would
Yeah.
ask me to come to their location, and the military let me.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to accept payment for that.
Right.
I could get cool swag from Alabama. They'd give
Right.
me sweatshirts and whatnot.
Right.
But I couldn't get paid, and
Right.
then it built.
Of course,
and
yeah.
built and grew, and then they asked me to come back again. And in the last year of my career, the lawyers gave me permission to start accepting money, and then I just kept doing it, and I
Right.
really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's great. Once again, to go back to why did I go into SEAL teams?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be part of a team.
Right.
I get to be part of a team,
Yeah.
and you know, even though it was the crushing loss, the first round of the playoffs with the Lightning, I was part of that experience, and you know, I hope I have the honor to be part of that next year and
Sure.
get after it and make things right,
Right.
Right.
because they need to be.
Right.
Yeah.
What's funny about that too is because I can picture you as a young man. You're done with college. You know, you had your football career behind you. You're phenomenal skier, and I picture you, you know, going into the Navy SEAL mindset of like I'm going to go out and kick some ass, right? But what you don't picture is maybe like that later in the career bit where, you know, it's a little bit more, for lack of better terms, desk job type of stuff. With that, how did that transition look to where you were, you know, going out doing your thing and then transitioning into those different types of roles? That had to be a little bit of a tough transition.
Yeah, it was, but you know, once again, my timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
Not by design. It was
Mm-hmm.
just pure coincidence. You know, I meet Allison, 18-year mark of my career. That's about when you start going to the desk jobs. We have our first child, Travis. Now that whole mindset
Yeah.
challenge I talked about earlier, it's a little easier for me to go to a desk job there. Then my injuries started creeping up. My hip replacement, that was number 10. So I've had, you know, 6 knee, multiple hip, shoulders, the whole deal. And
Bionic
you know,
man.
and it wasn't that I couldn't do it. I was still, I mean, I think even at that year when I was in Afghanistan, I ran a 4:52 mile at 10,000 feet above sea level. So I was still in good shape.
What?
Yeah, I was still getting after it, but I was getting older.
Right.
Yeah, and it was,
That's not something that'll ever leave you, though, that getting after a bit.
no,
No.
it's part of your DNA.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that people can pick up on, you know, Captain Chaby's aura through watching this or listening to him or looking, you know, watching his YouTube videos and watching him speak, but it's a totally different thing in person. I mean, you know, the commanding presence is something that, you know, I don't believe that people are necessarily born with.
Yeah. Agreed.
You know, or sorry, that people learn. Like people are actually
no.
born with these types of things, and you know, I feel you learned a lot through your career. You're just talking about that, always refining, but somewhere deep inside of you, it's always been a part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe, you know, but, you know, I always wanted, I didn't need to be the best. And I don't know if that's a shortfall, but I wanted to be accepted. And I think part of that, you come from the broken family thing.
Right.
I think there's some crossover there. And
Right.
I'm not going to become a psychologist here with you guys.
Yeah.
But there's an element when you come from a broken family and you don't, like I remember I would look at my friends that had these amazing families. Like my family was fine. My parents are great people.
Right.
But we didn't have
Yeah.
like what the family I have with Allison here in town, our family's phenomenal. It's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
It's all because of her.
Right.
Thank goodness she's
Okay.
there.
Right.
But, you know, I contribute where I can.
Right.
But when you don't have that and you see it,
Yeah.
it's something you want. And I think that is part of the driving force. So I don't know if I entirely agree with you. I don't think you're born. I think your circumstances shape you. I really believe that. And
Yeah.
it's not
Let me
like a
ask you-
single event.
All right.
It's
So
like,
I got to ask you this though. So are some people not natural athletes? Because some people are not natural athletes. They're just not. They're not coordinated. It's not that they can't learn and
that's
stuff.
That's true. I see it in the flag football teams.
Which, by the way, we'll get into in a sec.
Absolutely.
That's sweet.
But if some people can be not natural athletes, then you have to also believe some people are natural athletes. Some people are natural leaders. There's situations that draw them to it that because I've met people that are leaders, right? I've been around people. We've led things, but sometimes there's just that extra layer of natural ability.
Maybe,
and
but
I'm trying to see if you're being humble about this, or if
maybe
you're
a little bit. Okay, let's take my oldest son, Travis. A couple weeks ago, flag football, halftime, we're winning 34-18.
right, close game.
And my oldest son asks if he can talk to the team. And I'm like, oh my, what's he going to say? I'm like,
how cool
talk
is
to the
this?
team.
Oh, yeah.
And I just kind of take a half a step back. And he points at the scoreboard. And I've never said anything like this to him, but maybe he hears me talking.
Right,
And he's seen
right.
me speak a couple times, but not on this topic. Points at the scoreboard. He goes, do you see that 34-18? We do not have 34. Pretend we have 18 when we go out in the second half. I was just like, that is awesome. And they went out and they just dominated. It was
Right.
phenomenal. They were like on the dime spot.
That's awesome.
And I think was he born with that? I don't think so. I think like he
I hear you.
hears me talking
Your environment.
Yeah.
and he's environmentally,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I think so.
Yeah, I pick up on that divorced life coming up, because when I was in how old was I? I was in second grade. My parents got divorced, and they're friends to this day. But at the same time, that picturesque family that you're talking about, where you have family meals and stuff, that wasn't me. And I did see that in other families, and I think that created the young, driven person that I am today. When I got into real estate at 22, I was like, I'm going to set the freaking world on fire. Period.
Right.
And I think there's something definitely to that. I mean, that makes so much sense now that
yeah.
you say that to me. I'm almost having a kind of like experience as you're saying that.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Man. Shoot. So, all right. So we've gone through a lot here. You've nailed it.
We knew we would.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you, obviously by design, when you became a SEAL, did you ever envision being in for as long as you were?
No, absolutely not. I was going to do 4 years and get out.
Okay.
I just was looking for an adventure at that point. I wanted to be part of a team. The military's pretty, I don't want to say tricky, but they're pretty, by design, creative about how they design your pay raises, your opportunities, those
Right.
carrots to keep you in. So at the 4-year mark, you're about to get a $600 a month pay increase.
Right.
So you're like, wow. I mean, I was single and I worked
Right.
for minimum wage my whole life until then. I'm like, wow, $600 more dollars a month. I was like,
Right.
wow. And then at the 8-year mark, there's another carrot.
Right.
And then around the 10-year mark, that's when guys either stay or go.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting my master's at night, which I loved. Like,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I went and got a business degree, and one of the professors was a Navy sailor, a guy who had done 20 years, retired as a commander, and he was, for those that historically can remember, the Pueblo incident from Korea. It's a very historic, where the North Koreans captured an American ship, the USS Pueblo, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it was a horrible situation. I'm surprised it's not discussed more as we go down this road talking with these guys. But this gentleman, Alan Hemphill III, who was my computer science professor,
Right.
he was the investigating officer for this incident. So he knew if he would either make his career and go on and do great
Right.
things, or it'd be the opposite. It was the opposite. He was the fall guy for a lot. It was an
Wow.
ugly
Oh, wow.
point in history. You could look it up later. But he would take me to lunch periodically. He and his wife, and we would talk. And I was the only military guy in his class. And he
wow.
asked me one day, he goes, "Are you going to make a career out of this?" I said, "No, I'm thinking of getting out." And he's like, unequivocally wrong answer. And I'm like, well, how can you so emphatically say it like that? And he went through this whole thing. He goes, "Look at me. Do you think I'm successful?" And I knew a little bit about his background, which I'll share with you now. I
Right.
go, "Yeah, you've been pretty darn successful." He goes, Do you think that happened by accident? It didn't. I had the backdrop of a Navy retirement backing me up the whole way. I knew when I got out that my kids would have shoes on their feet.
Right.
My wife would have milk on the table every night, and I could take some chances.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that first opportunity when I got out of the Navy, I was like the number 6 guy hired by that startup company that you may have heard of called Apple Computer. And then I went and sold out there and bought a TV station. So the guy had done, you know, everything he did was based off the security he had.
Right.
And you know, I had nowhere else to go. I had no other plan. I was like, wow, I might as well stay in. And
Yeah.
I'm glad. And then all of a sudden, like 9/11 happened, and
Oh yeah.
I was overseas
Yeah.
for like
Wow.
10 plus years straight.
Right.
Wow.
And then, wow, I'm at 21 years. Yeah, what am I going to do now? Yeah.
Flew by.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.